Alright, we are back with a new video, and for the final time this season, we'll be updating the power rankings for Survivor 43 following episode 12, and this was a very fun episode that led to a very fun blindside, and at this point, I'm still not entirely sure who's going to win the season, as I keep jumbling around who the contenders are, and I feel like the edit is setting ourselves up for multiple people to potentially win this game based on how these last couple rounds play out. So it was definitely hard to put together this power ranking, but I did my best here. But there are 6 players to talk about, and let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into the video. So starting off at number 6, we have the boot for this week, and here we have Cody. And again, Cody got blindsided here, and I will admit I did not expect Cody to be the boot coming into this round, where we did see Jesse talking about how it was going to be this big move and how Cody was overshadowing Jesse. But really throughout a lot of the season, I never really got that sense based on the show. I really felt like Jesse was the one more out in front. I felt like Jesse was the one to get his way more often than Cody. And I felt like Jesse would have beat Cody in a jury vote. So when I heard Jesse present this plan right before Tribal, I thought it was just another red herring. I thought it was going to lead to a Carla vote out here. But no, Jesse does play Cody's idol on Owen, and in turn, Cody is voted out in a 4-0 vote, and he goes out here. And I will say that Cody played a pretty good game for the most part, where he, along with Jesse, did run a lot of the game, and I felt like they dominated most of their season. They were in control on the pre-merge tribe on Vessi, and then even after the merge, they were able to hold the numbers. They were able to snatch control from key power players like Ellie and later from Carla and James, and really were in control throughout a lot of it. I feel like Cody's biggest flaw, however, is he was too loyal to Jesse. I felt like that was pretty apparent on the show, but we've now gotten confirmation as well from exit interviews that Cody was never planning to flip on Jesse and that he would have gone to the final 3 with Jesse as well, to where I think he would have lost. Now again, we could get confirmation after the season that maybe Cody had more respect out there than Jesse, that maybe Cody would have won against Jesse in a jury vote. And if that's the case, then that will definitely change how I assess Jesse's decision here to blindside Cody. But even so, I still don't like how loyal Cody was to Jesse, whereas we saw with Jesse was willing to cut Cody. But even so, I still feel like Cody played a pretty good game. He definitely exceeded my expectations from him from the preseason, and I felt like he was a pretty fun character, all things considered. But again, he was taken out here, so because of that, he is here at number 6. And with that, there are 5 players left in the game to talk about, and I'll be ranking them based on how likely they are to win the game, based on their edit and their current game position. And as I said at the beginning, this was tough. I still feel like there isn't a clear frontrunner at this point, and I feel like a lot of my expectations going to the finale will be dictated by what happens at the final 5 round, and even to an extent the final 4 round. I feel like until we get to final tribal, I won't have a clear sense of who's actually going to win the game, which is exciting, I'm not going to lie, but it also makes his power ranking a bit tough. But at number 5, the player I have the least confidence in winning the game from this point is still Owen. Again, I feel like Owen has no shot of winning the game at this point. Now, he did get a decent amount of content early on where, for some reason, he got a decent amount of the credit for perpetuating this rift between Carla and Cassidy, which we did see starting from a couple episodes before, but Owen gets to narrate that to a degree, which is pretty interesting. And at this point, I feel like Owen is pretty clearly going to be a losing finalist. I feel like he's going to get to the end of the game, potentially with Gabler, but then lose a jury vote as a result. So because of that, I do have him here at number 5. Now we're moving on to number 4, and we have another player that I don't think is winning the game at this point, but here we have Carla. And it's really funny seeing Carla's fall from grace here, where, again, she had a pretty strong pre-merge, but ever since the merge, she has pretty much petered off from this point. And I feel like this was another very bad episode for her, where she obviously fell into Jesse's trap of wanting to target Cassidy, despite Cassidy being one of her closer allies. And the fact that she allowed this to happen is not ideal. And even going into this tribal, she talks about how she wanted to wait one more round, to hold on to her idol before playing at Final 5, only for her to be baited by Jesse into playing her idol here at the Final 6. So I feel like that's a pretty bad look for her, and really, I'm not entirely sure where she's going to go moving forward. I could see her getting taken out at the next round. I feel like Jesse could probably target her at that point. And with Jesse having another idol at his disposal, I could see him getting his way if that's what he chooses to do. And even if Carla gets to the end, I'm not entirely sure if she'll win a jury vote, as I'll explain more in my jury scenarios video, which will be coming out soon. I really feel like there's so many ways Carla could go out here, and plus I feel like the edit has not done her any favors as of late, to where I don't feel like she's winning the game at this point. So because of that, I have her here at number 4. Now we're moving on to number 3, and this is where the list gets tough, as I feel like these top 3 people are all people I could see winning the game, and I feel like the winner of the game will be one of these 3 people at this point. It's just a matter of what happens to the other 2 people at the final 5 and the final 4 rounds. But at number 3, we have the person who I think has the narrowest path to an actual win if we're looking at their position. But here we have Gabler. And Gabler's really tough to assess because he's still gotten a decent amount of content during this last couple of episodes. He got a really good confessional in this episode where he talks about how if you want to kill the king, you don't storm the castle, you like slip poison into their bowl and then walk out. And he's really been talking a lot about making this big move for really the last couple of episodes. And I thought it was going to culminate by this point by him taking out Jesse. But we just haven't seen it yet. And it makes me wonder, is he going to do it? I mean, I could see it happening. And if he does, maybe he gets credit for it. Maybe that's what it's leading to. And then maybe he wins the game because of that. But it's also tough because I'm not sure what Final 3 scenario Gabler actually wins in. And again, I'll get into more detail on this in my jury scenarios video, but it's really tough for me to imagine Gabler winning a jury vote given the makeup of the jury at this point, as well as the potential people he could sit against. Now again, there is potential for him to get some votes from certain people depending on who he's up against, but right out the bat, it's hard for me to actually see him winning a jury vote just based on the knowledge that I have from the show and from exit interviews. But with his edit giving this possibility that he could win, it's still enough to land him here at number 3, though realistically, I'm not super confident in right now. Now we're moving on to number 2, and I was very tempted to put this person at number 1, even after this episode. But after thinking about some more, I decided to bump them down here. But here we have Cassidy. And the thing about Cassidy is whenever I think of her, I think she is the one who has the least flawed edit. But then when I see these episodes, she just doesn't get propped up nearly enough. And even this episode, she doesn't get that much credit for the Cody blindside. Now granted, it wasn't really her move anyway, but I feel like the episode could have done more to set herself up to win coming into the finale. And it makes me very concerned about whether she can actually get to the end. Now, I feel like going into Final 5, she's probably going to have a target on her back with Carla potentially going after her, but also the fact that she's won the last couple of immunities at this point to where she could be targeted if she doesn't win immunity. And realistically, based on the edit that she's gotten, I wouldn't be surprised if she gets voted out at Final 5. Although the flip side to that is that if she's able to survive the Final 5 round, I think she stands a pretty good chance of winning the game, especially if she gets to the end without Carla or Jesse. I could very well see her winning the game where, again, Final 5, I feel like it's going to be either her or Carla going out. And then at Final 4, if she's able to get through that and Jesse's able to lose fire making, then she gets into the Final 3 in a very good spot to where she probably wins the game. So it's a very interesting situation that Cassidy's in at this point. And if this were another season where there was another player with a more standard winner edit, then I would say that she would be taken out at 5 and that would be the end of it. But the fact that there's this much uncertainty going into the finale, I have to consider the fact that despite this flaw and despite this possibility of her going out in 5th, she could still win the season if things go her way. And that's why I have her elitist this high. But again, I feel like the number 1 player has a more blatant path to win the game and is at least guaranteed to get through the Final 5. So because of that, I have her here at number 2. And now, at number 1, the player I believe is the most likely to win Survivor 43 going into the finale is Jesse. And honestly, I still don't feel that great about Jesse, namely because I feel like his edit just isn't there. I mean, if we're comparing it to other winner edits across Survivor history, I feel like Jesse's storyline throughout the season just isn't as deep as it was for other winners. Where, yes, you could say that his storyline is that he's playing it for his family. I mean, I guess if you want to compare him to Jeremy Collins from Cambodia, but the thing about that is that Jeremy's storyline about his family was set up through from the beginning, and it was a pretty consistent storyline throughout the season. Whereas Jesse, I mean, yes, he does get his intro package about how he was a former gang member and how he has since grown out of that and that he's gotten like a wife and kids now. I mean, there's that, but really, if we're looking outside of that, most of his content throughout the season has just been him being a big player, more in line with what we see from like Shan from 41 or even Omer from 42. I feel like the storyline just is not as consistent as other winners. And I feel like it's only in the last episode or two where this whole talk about his family has really become front and center once again, particularly with him justifying this Cody blindside. And I said this earlier when I was talking about Cody. I did question whether taking out Cody in the spot was a good idea because I was under the assumption that Jesse was going to beat Cody in a jury vote, that people were naturally seeing Jesse as the more dominant player between him and Cody, and that they would reward Jesse with the win more so than Cody. And I felt like through that made the move here pretty bad, especially now knowing that Cody was planning to take Jesse to the end. So I did question whether this was a solid move or not, because by taking out Cody here, he is decreasing the chances that he can actually get to the end of the game, as he's now putting himself in a position to where he's either going to have to win immunity at Final 4 or go right into fire. And that's a pretty bad spot for Jesse to be in. But the more that I thought about it, I did feel like it was still a pretty good move nonetheless. I feel like by him playing the idol for Owen, that it really showed to the jury that he was the one in charge, that he was the one running the game, and really solidified that he was the more dominant player. And I feel like if he's able to whip out another idol at the Final 5, an idol that no one really knew about up to this point, then I feel like that will only further solidify Jesse's case for winning the game. I feel like it'll ultimately come down to whether Jesse can win that Final 4 fire making challenge, as I feel like that's his biggest obstacle to win. Again, Final 5, he has an idol he can play. And then Final 4, if he can get through that round, if he can get to the end, I think he wins a jury vote against pretty much everyone. So it's really just a matter of whether he can get to the very end of the game. And there are two main reasons why I have Jesse at number 1, despite my concerns with this edit. One is, again, the fact that he's at least guaranteed to get to the Final 4, unless he makes a really big mistake, is more than I can say for Cassidy, where I feel like Cassidy has a shot going out at Final 5. That's a concern there. But then also, to be honest, I think Jesse just has more win equity in general. And with Cassidy's edit not being that much better than Jesse's, I decided to just go with who I feel more confident in winning the game at the very end. And to me, that person is Jesse. So because of that, I do have him here at number 1. And there we go. That will do it for this week's video. If you like this content, be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps out with the channel. Now, before the season ends, I do plan to make one additional video where I go through the various jury scenarios and break down what I think will happen in each of those, so you can stay tuned for that. I am also doing a team ranking for the Amazing Race 34 now that that is wrapped up, so stay tuned for that as well. And if you haven't already, be sure to join my Discord server, which I'll leave a link to join in the description. There's a lot of stuff coming your way, but for now, that's the video. See ya.